I recently saw a graphic, showing in the balance the number of human beings who are living today on the top side of an hourglass, and on the bottom side, the estimate of how many people have lived and died in this world in the course of all of human history. And of course, while we know there are several billion people alive in the world today, even so that number is dwarfed by the number of human beings who have already lived and died in the course of the centuries and millennia past. For us in this church, which seats maybe at the most 350 people, it is difficult to imagine what even 1 million people would look like, much less 1 billion, never mind the many billions who have lived and died in this world. And I mention this because today, with the genealogy that we hear, we are given something of a snapshot. If we could take a snapshot of all the generations who have lived and died, we are given a snapshot of the length of time of the life after life after life that is the past from which we ourselves have sprung. This is the soil in which we are rooted. This is the source from which we have come. And the rule for human life in this world, we know, is death. There is no one living now who was alive more than, at the most, 120, 130 years ago. Everyone else has died. And everyone who is still living, all of us here in this room, the millions who inhabit this nation, and the billions who inhabit the planet, all of us too will one day endure death, unless the Lord comes first. We don't like to think about this, but it is the reality of our existence. And when we turn our eyes to God on high and ask why we are here, why we must endure the sorrow and the pain, it is difficult to imagine what answer could be given that would somehow justify those centuries, those millennia, and all those billions of dead. And yet we hear today in the gospel one word which squares the balance, one word which communicates the purpose of all of this enduring, all of this waiting, all of this suffering. And the word is that which Christ comes to fulfill, this name by which he is called by the prophet, Emmanuel. And this is a word that does not ring with any significance in our minds. We have heard it perhaps from our childhood, but it is in a language far removed from our daily experience. But it speaks a truth. A truth that the wisest would not dare to deduce or to assume. It says that God will enter into his creation, that he will submit himself to the law of death and will overturn it in himself because he is the source of life and being. for us as we stand here today on the brink of the celebration of Christmas, with the darkness and the cold of a dead world, because all the life has at least been choked out of the grass and the trees, so it seems, by this last snow and freeze. As we stand in a world of death and cold, as we look to the cave, to the birth that we anticipate and expect and eagerly approach every year, we are called today to understand that with us stands the whole mass of humanity that has gone before us in death, in expectation of some hope not yet seen. That with us stands indeed the great cloud of witnesses spoken of in the epistle. All those who lived their lives in trust and expectation of some end beyond their sight, and yet they trusted, they waited, they went to their death, sometimes in peace, more often in suffering, looking even as they drew their last breath for a hope beyond their sight and understanding. Now we possess this. We have been given this great gift, all of us here, from our childhood. From before we remember, we knew the good news that God had come into the world and saved us. We know it so well, we sometimes forget how important it is, this truth that we know. But today, surrounded by the great cloud of witnesses, we are called to reflect on it again, to remember that into this world of darkness and death, light has not just shined, light has come. Light and the source of life shines forth within the world and illumines all things, beginning with us. Because we are the church, we are the faithful, we are the Christians, the little Christs. We are called to raise our faces to the source of light and to be transformed, so that in us, in the week to come, in the year to come, in all the rest of our lives, the rest of the world may see us as one of that great cloud of witnesses that bears witness to the truth and the glory of God with us, Christ in our midst. This is what we observe today. And we are blessed to have a full week to reflect, to consider, to meditate, to anticipate the glory of God come into our midst. And as we continue the liturgy, as we approach Holy Communion, as we conclude, in some sense, our expectation of the fast, because I know many will receive communion today, we are called to understand this is what we are celebrating. This is what we are participating in. Today, now, this very moment, we offer ourselves broken to God, and He offers Himself whole and life-giving to us. And we commune with Him, and we are sent out as part of that great cloud of witnesses, showing the wonder of a world inhabited, enlivened by its Creator. So please stand, and we will continue the liturgy.